morning and welcome friends. It's Sunday 6 p.m. There is turmoil in Gilgit-Baltistan of Pak-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Prime Minister has spoken on G20 and its importance for India. There is a storm over comments made by DMK's I.N.D.I.A on exterminate Hinduism. And of course, the Congress party in splits on where it stands. But then in this bulletin, we are going to focus on another very important story trending for the last 2 days, which is One Nation, One Poll. And what happens if it is taken up during the upcoming special session of Parliament. Let's begin with the headlines first. Massive political storm over DMK leader Udayanithi Stalin's Sanatan dharma insult. 2 complaints submitted.
That the Honorable Supreme Court of India has given an observation that they will take a suo motu cognizance of any hate speech.
BJP hits back at I.N.D.I.A alliance parties over insult to Sanatan dharma. Call said the genocidal call asks top court to take cognizance.
सनातन को मिटाने का जो ख्वाब है ये अंग्रेजों ने भी देखा, ये मुगलों ने भी देखा, लेकिन सनातन नहीं मिट पाया. सनातन न मिटा है, सनातन न मिटेगा.
Congress divided over DMK's anti-Hindu rant. Karti adds to insult. Acharya Pramod Krishnam demands sacking of Stalin's son. Congress opts out of One Nation, One Poll panel. Rahul fearmongers calling the big election reform an attack on India. A week ahead of G20 summit, Prime Minister's big interview to PTI. PM dismisses Pakistan and China objections to the G20 venues, Kashmir and Arunachal respectively. And after days of protests and riot-like situation over case against the Shia cleric, Pakistan army called in Gilgit-Baltistan of Pak-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. All right, welcome back, friends. The debate over One Nation, One Poll is only escalating. A day after the Congress leader, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, declined the invitation to be part of the panel which was formed by the central government to examine the possibility of implementing the idea of One Nation, One Election. Now, the Congress party has attempted to politicize the move even further, with Rahul Gandhi trying to fearmonger over the same. Rahul has said that the idea of One Nation, One Election is an attack on the Indian Union and all its states. Let's listen into some of the voices coming in the Congress party, and then we'll have a nice 10-minute discussion with the BJP and the Congress represented on the panel. Listen in.
तो पहले ये जानना चाहता हूँ कि क्या ये सर्वदलीय से बातचीत करना उचित नहीं है? क्या एनडीए में उन्होंने अलग अलग दलों से बातचीत की है? क्या इंडिया के जो अलग अलग दल हैं उनके प्रतिगण से बात की है कि कमेटी क्या होनी चाहिए, कैसे विचार होना चाहिए? इस विषय पे तो पहले भी कमेटी बैठ चुकी है, अलग अलग कमेटी ने अपनी राय दी है, उसके बाद भी एक नया कमेटी की बात कर रहे हैं. तो मुझे तो लगता है कि ये सिर्फ ध्यान भटकाने का काम है. मुझे तो लगता है कि एनडीए के अंदर भी बहुत से राजनीतिक दलों का इसका कुछ पता नहीं होगा, भाजपा के अंदर भी शायद चर्चा नहीं होगा. तो जब ये किस प्रकार का एक कानूनी व्यवस्था बनाना चाहती है ये सरकार, जो बिना विचार विमर्श किए हुए कुछ भी उनके मन में आया उसमें एक कमेटी भी बना दी, अपने मन से बना दिया, किसी की अनुमति भी नहीं, कोई परिप्रेक्ष्य भी नहीं बनाया, कोई व्यवसाय भी नहीं किया, तो ये सिर्फ ध्यान भटकाने का काम है. आप देखिएगा कि 2 हफ्ते बाद ऑटोमेटिकली ये विषय खत्म हो जाएगा. स्टैंड सिंपल है कि लोगों को अवगत कराना, लोगों को भी पता है कि ये सारे जुमले हैं, ध्यान भटकाने का काम है. लोकसभा के निर्वाचन 7 महीने पश्चात है, 5 विधानसभा के निर्वाचन 3 महीने के पश्चात हैं. तो क्या ये वक्त है कि लोकसभा विधानसभा सारे विधानसभा को भंग करना चाहते हैं? क्या मतलब, तो सरकार की कोई नीति नहीं.
All right, let's have a nice conversation on what this really means, how the political parties are standing on this issue. Joining me from the studios, BJP spokesperson Charu Pragya, and also joining us via Zoom, I believe, Nikhil Jain to represent the Congress party views. And I would want to begin with you, Nikhil. If you listen to the Gaurav Gogoi bite, he's saying there is no discussion that has happened, there is no permission that has been sought. It seems like a distraction. And there is lack of consultation. That's why they are opposing. I mean, is the problem with discussion and deliberation, or is the problem per se with the concept itself? Because if the problem is with the concept, then you have the option of participating in the special session of parliament and put across your views. That's how democracy functions. Have a nice, intense debate and then come to a conclusion. Why just throw the baby out with the bathwater and not be part of the conversation?
First of all, Abhishek, the government hasn't yet told even the members of parliament what the special session is being called for. We are only assuming that it may be on the one nation, one election. Some people are assuming it's on UCC. Some people are assuming it's on criminal law reforms. People have their different visions of what it might be on, number one. Number two, when we talk about a consultative process that should be there in a democracy, we should have an equal balance and the rightful representation. So the parties that stand
has already
to lose
happened. You are
the most
factually
will be-
incorrect, sir. And may I please?
let me make my point
Yeah,
first.
let
Charu.
me finish.
Charu will come to you.
Yeah.
Complete, Nikhil, complete. Huh.
So I think the
You were
parties, the
saying no
political parties, the
consultation.
stakeholders are at the most risk of losing from this are the regional parties. But in the committee that has been set up, there is absolutely no representation from the regional parties. 1 out of the 8 people,
But that's why the
one
parliament
post out of
session
the
is.
8 posts available in the
Everyone
committee
would
was
be
offered to the
represented
Congress
in the
party, which is
dialogue.
the national party.
More.
I'm sorry?
I'm saying that's why the parliament
Abhishek,
session
I think-
is. Everyone will get
I'm
to
not
speak.
hearing you.
5 days, maybe all 500 MPs could speak.
But Abhishek, that is not how a consultative process on something like this can happen. 500 MPs obviously cannot
He's
put
got
forth
nothing
their
That is not
proper views on
consultative.
this,
Can I come
who
in?
need
Can I
a
come in
panel
now, please,
that
Abhishek?
has representation from different parties.
Can I just give you some
I
facts?
think, Nikhil, you're not
which you have
sounding
missed out on?
convincing. I think, Nikhil, you're not sounding convincing. The issue is not consultation, because first you say, oh, Mr. Kharge is not invited, that's why we are not part of it. Then you say, oh, there is no consultation. Charu, are you getting any clarity from Congress position where they stand?
No, and let me start from the beginning and remind my co-panelists that when he says there's been no discussion about this, there has been a discussion in the Parliamentary Standing Committee, and they gave a report in 2015 and 2018. So, आपको पता होना चाहिए, the standing committees in the Parliament are multi-party committees. Representation from across the nation and across political parties is what consists of these committees. They have twice in 2015 and 18 given a positive report for one nation, one election. That's the first thing, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but you should know this. Secondly, you objected to the presence of Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary ji. Now, if you find him good enough to represent as the leader of opposition in the parliament, why not let him represent on the committee? The formation of the committee is basically so that this consultative process can begin. You are criticizing the process even before it has begun. The third point is, and this discussion also has been around, Abhishek, they say that the electorate will get confused and political parties which are regional will not have a proper stand if it becomes a system where all the elections in the nation happen together. I want to say that in 2019, 3 state elections happened simultaneously with the general parliamentary elections.
Yeah.
State of Odisha, state of Andhra Pradesh and the state of Arunachal Pradesh.
Yeah.
2 out of these 3 states don't have BJP governments.
Also,
so
Odisha.
please understand that our electorate is very aware. They are very intelligent. They know who they want to vote for, whether it's the local level, a state election or the parliamentary election. I think when you look at the greater good, when you look at reforms that this country needs, one nation, one election is a critical one. Can you even imagine the sheer expenditure that comes onto this country for the sake of conducting elections? The whole cycle of model code of conduct now, making sure all the government employees are devoted to election processes now, the armed personnel from our forces which are deployed for elections, all of this is a lot to handle, and
Okay.
also the voter turnout will increase,
Okay.
Abhishek.
Yeah, okay. Nikhil, you get another chance. In the first attempt, I think you did not really do well for your party or your views. Now tell me, tell me, Rahul Gandhi says India, that is union of states. Is he suggesting that if the elections are held together, it compromises federalism? In which case? Was federalism compromised in 1952? Was federalism compromised in 1957? Was federalism compromised in 1962 when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru became Prime Minister and all those Congress governments came to states, respective states? Charu gave the example of electorate choosing different political parties in 2019, I believe 2014 also. The example of Odisha, where every election, which typically happens with general elections, the electorate chooses the BJD for the state and whichever party, sometimes Congress, sometimes the BJP when it comes to the Lok Sabha. So I think you are sort of not trusting or actually thinking that people are fooled, that they will not be smart enough to take a wise call.
See, Abhishek, first of all, the BJP has been raking up the issue of expenditure in elections. I can take that point, honestly. But I have a very important question for Charu to answer here, that when we are having, hypothetically assuming that we are to have the state elections of all the states and the Lok Sabha elections at the same time, and when I, as a voter, go and cast my vote, I'll be casting one vote for my MLA and one vote for my MP. You would require 2 ballot machines to do that, right? One ballot machine costs about 17,000 rupees. If I'm not mistaken with the figure, I think there are 10 lakh ballot machines that are to be used during one round of elections. So that is essentially getting 10 lakh more machines, each of which cost 17,000. I'm not so quick with maths to really know what the figure is, but I think that will run into several thousands of crores. So it is not a very fair argument to make that expenditure alone is the reason. So far as the 1952, 57, 62, 67 elections being there together
is concerned, understand one thing, I think this is a very
more federal today than we were at that point of time. That is not because that the government or the ruling dispensation at that point did not want the structure of federalism, but the reality is at that point you did not have regional parties with any stronghold. It was the Congress everywhere, whether it was the state governments, whether it was the union government. And the moment you saw the emergence of regional parties, which was good for the country, which was good for federal structure, you started having elections at different times. And what is the answer to all of this? Also, the three examples that are being quoted by my good friend from the BJP here of Arunachal, Andhra, and
may I please respond now?
Those are states where neither of the national parties have a very strong presence.
Okay, Nikhil, the cost is only one argument of the entire focus that this debate is going to bring us on democracy as we practice. Now, you see, if you look at cost, I might not be getting the numbers exactly right. So the general election costs about 60-70,000 crore rupees, say 60 crore electorates about rupees 10 a vote. I mean, if you really talk about those things, it's not a very expensive amount to sustain our very healthy democracy. But then cost is just one argument, Charu, right? There is this issue of the paralysis of governance that happens every time you are into a model code of conduct. And that's something which we can't afford as a fast growing nation with the objective of becoming a developed country by 2047. I believe that's the argument, right, Charu?
Absolutely, and I mentioned that. So when we have the moral code of conduct, the government cannot function as usual. Also, political parties get distracted. Let's be honest. If the election is around the corner and every year we have several elections, political parties are distracted with that instead of governance. Why should we not club these elections together? In the next couple of months, we have 12 states that are going into election. I'm counting the 5 for this year and several states for next year, plus the general elections. Why can we not club all of this together and save trouble for our electorate? Also, because you mentioned cost, let me remind you that when you look at the cumulative cost of a one-time expenditure of buying EVMs versus spending every single time on, say, transportation of our forces, spending for the election, it's a minor investment in comparison to the years of trouble we will save. Also, let's remember, this is a reform which is a well thought out one. This is a reform which makes a part of uniting India in a better way, and I'll tell you why. So when we talk about one nation, one tax, we are improving the system. One nation, one law, one nation, one road toll, one nation, one market, one rank, one pension. So one nation, one election is equally important, and I think we need to remember that the political parties who are opposing this today have not even become a part of this discussion yet. You have something constructive to say, please say it, but just opposing it because Modi ji was the one who proposed it is not right. See, Niti Aayog has said it's desirable. Our former election commissioner has said it's desirable. The parliamentary standing committees have given positive reports. Kovind ji has said it is desirable. I don't know why you don't want to even discuss it.
Okay, Charu, before I get Nikhil to respond to you, I have a question for you.
Ji.
When you say OROP, when you say ONOP, when you say one nation, one tax, a criticism that is leveled against the BJP is that, or you talk about uniform civil code, the criticism is that everywhere you are looking for uniformity while we are a very diverse nation, inherently diverse nation. So that's a criticism that perhaps you have to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. And where are we taking away from the diversity of the nation by saying that all states have their own independent elections? But let's not just be in this cycle every couple of months. Why can we not do that? Earlier this year, we had some elections. Later this year, we have some elections. Early next year, we have more elections. Are you understanding the circle in which every political party is trapped in and the government is trying to break out of this? Also, it's not just at the time of independence that we had one nation, one election. In 1983, the then Prime Minister also said that we aim to get back to that system because it is more effective. It's better for governance. It's better for the electorate. Now you imagine if elections are just once every 5 years, people can go back home, travel back home, go to their hometowns and vote. Imagine how much more the voter turnout is going to be. You want to maintain India as a thriving, vibrant democracy. You want more and more people to vote. This is one of the easiest ways to make them do that.
Okay, Nikhil, before you respond to Charu, I am also bringing to your attention the fact that the committee also, by the way, has to deliberate on whether the common election has to happen not just for Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha or the state assemblies, but also for the municipalities and the panchayats. So this argument that Charu gave has merit that in one go, if say about 5%, 4% of the floating population, they have to vote and they are not able to vote, and that's detrimental to democracy because you are in a way denying that many people their right to franchise. If they can take the benefit of single election, go to their respective place where their constituency is, where their voting right is, vote and come back, it actually strengthens democracy by numbers. It's not the other way around. And also, my question still remains, Nikhil, you get the last word to respond to because you are on the defensive on this. Why not have a healthy debate in the parliament? Why just throw it out before even a dialogue begins?
So first to answer on the parliamentary debate question, Abhishek, I feel we should have a debate on that. I just hope the government actually discusses it in the parliament. We don't know what they are calling the special session for. Secondly, from the BJP is talking about one nation, one tax, one nation, one rank, one pension. One rank, one pension has not yet been implemented. When you talk about the GST, when I go to buy liquor or to buy petrol, I am still paying an excise tax. It is not just GST, and even the rates for GST on different items are not the same. So let's not say that it is one nation, one tax.
Petrol doesn't come under GST. I'm sure you're aware, Nikhil.
That's all right. And then there are the number of issues of GST dues not being paid. I'll take to the point. When the point is concerned about municipality elections being held together with these state assembly elections and Lok Sabha elections, the big question there is that to hold local body elections is within the prerogative of the state governments, and therefore they have to decide and not the centre. Secondly, those elections are looked after by the state election commissioners, which are different independent constitutional bodies than the Election Commission of India. So I'm not quite sure how those elections can be held together. Thirdly, my friend from the BJP said that this is a step towards uniting India. Are you saying that India is currently not united, and just because you'll have elections at the same time, India would be united? And lastly, she's talking about how politicians are getting distracted by continuous elections. I think she has a very, very fair point to make when she's talking about her leader, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who goes on to campaign even for municipality elections. That too,
he's the one who's proposing one nation, one election.
Maybe if the Prime Minister was more focused on government, I think we'll not have that point so much.
Well, okay. Can I get
what
20-second rebuttal?
You will get. Nikhil has, given a litany of charges also. He has one suggestion, I believe, that if you can actually effectively implement OROP, if you can effectively implement GST, then maybe you go ahead and put in the one nation, one poll. So that's one suggestion, but then you respond to the other charges he has made.
Absolutely. And I will respond to all. Now, Nikhil, I know, is intelligent enough to understand that petrol, diesel does not fall under GST. And he knows that. And there's been deliberate discussions on this with representatives from all the states. And a lot of the states don't have BJP governments. Maybe you should appeal to them. Another thing is, you say Modi ji is campaigning. Well, he's the one who's asking for one nation, one election. If you want to support Modi ji, why not call out for this? Also, you said like smaller regional parties did not exist at the time of independence. Now they do. And we take away from them when we talk about a reform like this. Are you trying to tell me that YSRCP, BJD, they are parties which do not matter to you? Are they parties which you consider weak in any manner whatsoever because they are managing to win their state elections?
Okay. Fair enough. I think, Nikhil, you made your point. The debate is not dying down anytime soon because remember, we are in a build-up to G20 first and then, of course, the special session of Parliament beginning 18th of September. We are going to get many opportunities going ahead into that week and further to discuss one nation, one poll, and we'll keep coming back to you viewers. Thank you so much on that note, Charu, Pragya and Nikhil Jain for joining us from the BJP and the Congress parties respectively. We move on and to another story which has been in the headlines, which is about protests by the Maratha community, some elements at least in pockets of Maharashtra. That's after a short break.
The top-ranked Amity B.Tech attracts some of the most brilliant students of India, with alumni working in top companies around the world and earning over 2 crores rupees per annum. To apply, visit amity.edu.
How do you jump from a plane, sir? मैं तो 5 मीटर की बात कर रहा हूँ. आप बात कर रहे हैं 15, 20, 30 हजार फुट की. डर नहीं लगता सर?
नहीं लगता है क्योंकि हम लोग नॉर्मली 13,000 फीट से जंप करते हैं बिकॉज एज पर USPA regulations 14,000 and above you need oxygen. 13,000 feet is higher than high. It's not high anymore. It is your transcended highness. 10 meter might seem high, 50 meters might seem high. Skyscraper के ऊपर आप खड़े हो जाओ 200 मीटर पे या 100 मीटर पे जो भी होता है. That is high. 13,000 feet is above highness. It is above high.
(2017) Republic TV. 2019 Republic Bharat. 2021 Republic Bangla. 2023 Republic Kannada, coming soon on India's largest news network.
You said that let me jump from a plane. मैं ना I want to do skydiving, I want to do parachuting. ये कहाँ से आया?
यार मेरा एक दोस्त था, we went to school together. He was commissioned in 111 GR. I met him in जोधपुर. वो एक दिन अपनी डांगरी पहन के मेरे घर में आया तो वहाँ पे उसका स्काई डाइवर करके उसने यहाँ पे लगा रखा था. तो फिर मैंने उसको पूछा यार ये क्या होता है स्काई डाइविंग? ऐसे से होता है. ठीक है. And then shortly after that he tragically lost his life. So then I went to New Zealand and I started my skydiving career.
Welcome back. In the latest development coming in from Maharashtra, protesters have blocked the Pune-Solapur highway. 45 bus depots remain shut in the state. This comes a day after protests in the state's Jalna demanding reservation for the Maratha community turned violent and led to injuries to both police personnel and civilians alike. At least 20 MSRTC buses were torched during the violence over the Maratha quota demand since Friday evening. Let's look at this ground report filed by Sandeep.
Clashes were reported between the police and the Maratha community people in Jalna district, Sarati village, where the Maratha community people were in fact protesting for Maratha reservation in Jalna district. And in fact, at the same point of time, due to this very clash, we saw lathi charge was also forced on the protesters. Apart from that, following which stone pelting also took place. And not only that, we witnessed that several buses across this very district were set on fire by some anti-social elements. Now, at this point of time, we are reporting from one of such buses. This is one of the Karnataka state ran buses, and in fact, this bus was coming from Aurangabad and was going towards Karnataka. As due to the outrage of that very lathi charge incident, it seems that several protesters across the state of Maharashtra put several public transport buses on fire, and this is one of the example of that, wherein we see that the buses are being set on fire. In fact, we are reporting from one of the buses, as there is nothing remaining on this very bus. Everything has turned into trash and ashes, and in fact the Maharashtra government has said that strict actions will be taken against the people who have in fact taken the law in the hand. As far as this case is concerned, more than 350 people have been booked by the Maharashtra police, and a high level inquiry has been in fact ordered in this very incident. More than 10 to 15 buses have been set on fire, but fortunately the people who were in fact traveling in this very buses, they were in fact taken out, and then these buses were in fact set on fire. With video journalist Kanti Sandeep Singh for Republic TV.
Well, another short break on the other side. India counts down to the mega G20 summit. We'll get you exclusive interviews on the other side.
तो सर एक बात बताइए, what is the motivation for a person who is differently abled or disabled? उसका क्या motivation हो सकता है? I'm trying to understand.
Last 7 years I am on a wheelchair. Disability का सबसे पहला disadvantage ये होता है कि you lose your job, number one. अगर if you have had an accident, serious accident, है ना, you lose your job, then you have to come out of that physical and mental trauma. Then you have to retool yourself, re-educate yourself for another job. And when you go to that another job, you are paid less than an able-bodied person. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
How do you jump from a plane, sir? मैं तो 5 मीटर की बात कर रहा हूँ, आप बात कर रहे हैं 15, 20, 30 हजार फुट की. डर नहीं लगता सर?
नहीं लगता है, क्योंकि हम लोग नॉर्मली 13,000 फीट से जंप करते हैं. बिकॉज एज पर USPA regulations, 14,000 and above you need oxygen. 13,000 feet is higher than high. It's not high anymore. It is, you have transcended highness. 10 meter might seem high, 50 meters might seem high. Skyscraper के ऊपर आप खड़े हो जाओ 200 मीटर पे या 100 मीटर पे, जो भी होता है, that is high. 13,000 feet is above highness. It is above high.
You said that let me jump from a plane. मैं ना, I want to do skydiving, I want to do parachuting. ये कहाँ से आया?
यार मेरा एक दोस्त था, we went to school together. He was commissioned in 111 GR. I met him in जोधपुर. वो एक दिन अपनी डांगरी पहन के मेरे घर में आया, तो वहाँ पे उसका स्काई डाइवर करके उसने यहाँ पे लगा रखा था. तो फिर मैंने उसको पूछा, यार ये क्या होता है स्काई डाइविंग? ऐसे से होता है. ठीक है. And then shortly after that he tragically lost his life. So then I went to New Zealand. I started my skydiving career.
(2017) Republic TV. (2019) Republic Bharat. 2021 Republic
Nobody can ever trouble an honest journalist. Nobody can ever trouble an honest media house. We are destined for success. Every moment from now on, I want everyone in the Digvijaya newsroom to always remember that you must be wedded to the cause of news. Thank you very much, Anand, for having us here and for letting us take the journey forward. We are already in the final week going into the G20 Leaders Summit. It has been a tremendous experience, learning curve for India's diplomatic corps, as also, of course, for the rest of the nation to watch India on the Global Committee of Nations at the high table. As we go into the Leaders Summit, let's try to understand what have we seen all through this year of India G20 presidency with none other than Chief Coordinator of the G20 Secretariat, Mr. Harshvardhan Shringla, former Foreign Secretary of India as well. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Your lessons you have taken, the experience, and generally speaking, how has India handled the G20 presidency?
Well, when you talk about lessons and experience, they probably aren't that many because it's the first time we are hosting a G20 presidency. So there's no copybook that we can go by. But what is important is that we have started preparations well before we even began our presidency last year. We set up the Secretariat. We started planning and preparing for this eventuality. We consulted previous presidencies, Saudi Arabia, Italy, Indonesia. We got a lot of information and inputs from them. And but we were very clear right from the beginning that the Prime Minister's vision was to host an impeccable and uniquely Indian presidency. And that was our focus throughout. So as you've seen, I mean, our endeavor has been to not only make it a successful exercise in terms of the G20 itself, but to ensure that this is one that that involves all of our citizens, that this creates stakeholders at the grassroots levels, takes everybody along with that process. So it's been an inclusive and all-encompassing exercise from that point of view.
So if you could give one or two examples of the differentiator between India's presidency of G20 and the others.
Well, I think the first factor is that we have taken G20 to every part of our country. We are not only the largest democracy in the world, we are also the mother of democracy. So it's incumbent on us to ensure that when we host such an important exercise, that this is not a remote exercise handled by some people. It is an exercise that belongs to the entire country. And it's in that endeavor, I think, that the Prime Minister envisioned that the G20 meeting should be held in every state and every union territory of India. That means the length and breadth of India has been covered. Wherever we've hosted G20 meetings, the people of that area have been very, very integrally involved with that process through side events, a number of other Jan Bhagidari events around it. So, as I said, the endeavor has been to make every citizen a stakeholder in the process. And through the Jan Bhagidari process of involving students, involving quiz competitions, selfie competitions, festivals, take it to the grassroots levels.
Right.
So today when we talk about our logo, we talk about our theme of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it is one that every person can identify with.
Right.
I mean, take our logo, for example. In the beginning, people used to ask us, can we use the logo for a certain conference, for a certain session? But after some time, it became so popular that it was seen all over the country. You know, you could see it in shopping malls. You could see it used by auto rickshaw drivers. We reached a situation where prominent companies approached us to use the logo in their products itself. So I think it has become a ubiquitous brand. It has become a brand.
Yeah.
G20 India has become a brand, not only in our country, but it's become an international brand.
Right.
And so what has been unique in our presidency, that was your question, is that we have made G20 a people's G20. We have certainly included cities of our country that have never hosted an international event before. So close to 60 cities have been hosts to G20 meetings. We've hosted close to 200 meetings so far. And I can safely say that many of the places that we traveled to arrange the meetings really had no experience of any major conferences, leave alone international conferences of this nature. But they all put their best foot forward. Whether it's states, whether it's union territories, municipalities, districts, everybody came forward. It is the best example in my view, as someone who organized it on the ground, of cooperative federalism.
All right, so any numbers to back up the people's presidency, like how many students were involved, universities, campuses, municipalities, something like that? And also, when you say it traveled across the country, was it without any bias to which state has which government in power?
So, yes, that's an important point, that every state, irrespective of their political affiliations, was the host of one G20 meeting or the other. And every state, whether they were affiliated with the government or were in opposition, came forward in a manner that, as I said, they wanted to use the opportunity to put the best of their country and the best of that state to the international delegates who were coming. And we got fullest cooperation from every state in India. You would recall that Prime Minister had, as soon as we took over the presidency, addressed governors and chief ministers of states. And at that time he said, this is a unique opportunity for you to showcase the best in terms of our cultural heritage and diversity. And so it's for states to provide the support necessary. And I can tell you, having traveled to a very large number of states to meet the concerned stakeholders, chief ministers, chief secretaries, officials, others, I think we received the fullest support and cooperation. And without that cooperation in our federal structure, we could never have made this presidency such a successful one.
Since the diplomatic exercise, there has been subtle diplomatic messaging also involved. For example, holding an event in Srinagar in Kashmir or Arunachal Pradesh. How was it seen by the rest of the membership of G20?
So take Srinagar, for example. I think we had excellent turnout and participation of the international delegates. There were actually 5 UN organizations that attended that meeting. The UN itself, the UN World Tourism Organization, UNEP. So you had a plethora of UN agencies that came. I think, were able to get a very large participation, not only from within our stakeholders within the country, but also internationally, as I said. And it was very greatly appreciated by the people of Jammu and Kashmir themselves, who realized that this was a unique opportunity for them. And many people also commented that they had never ever seen an international event of this nature. This is the largest event ever hosted in Srinagar in their history. And I think people also associated it with many of the positive changes in the urban sector. There was an urban transformation. It was a smart city. The Jhelum riverfront was completely redone. The Dal Lake was cleaned. The entire area was absolutely beautiful. And I had been there 6 months before that, and I've seen the changes that have been brought in. And these changes will stay well beyond the G20. So they're changes that will be there to stay. And so people said, let's have more of such events. Let's have more G20 events in Srinagar. And I think so. It was a game changer in many senses.
Arunachal as well?
Arunachal as well. I think right from the chief minister down to every person was associated. All of the cultural diversity of Arunachal Pradesh was there for our visitors and guests to see. It was a fascinating glimpse into a part of our country that unfortunately not enough of us have been to.
So if you have to mark out 2 things which rest of the world, while observing India's G20 presidency, can look at important takeaways.
Well, I think first and foremost, our philosophical vision of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One earth, one family, one future. The entire premise rests not only from ancient times, where we use this concept to engage holistically with the rest of the world, but also in today's context, the philosophy drives our foreign policy, drives our external engagement. So when we talk about working for the global common good, We are the pharmacy of the world. During COVID times, we provide medicines to the rest of the world. We provided under Vaccine Maitri, Indian-made vaccines to the rest of the world. We are also providing our expertise and experience in digital public infrastructure. India Stack, for example. Renewable energy through the International Solar Alliance and the CDRI. Now, when we look at that, I think we are very conscious of the fact that we work towards the global common good. So that concept, and I'll digress for just a second, when the Saudi Arabians hosted a summit, an extraordinary summit during COVID, and Prime Minister had asked and initiated that process. In that meeting, he actually said that this is the first time that the G20 is meeting on an issue that's neither economic nor financial. It's meeting on a humanitarian issue. And he called for a human-centric globalization. And that philosophy is there to stay. Under our presidency, for the first time, developed and developing countries have come together to work to create solutions for global challenges. That we are seeing the beginning of a new global order, which is based on a process of global collaboration.
We have had this peculiar situation where even the use of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam has been objected to, but I'll not get into that. My second last question, was it a sort of a logistics nightmare, if not a nightmare, a challenge to be holding this scale of event for the first time perhaps in our country? And also the G20 summit, for example, we did not have a convention center matching the requirements, and then we got one, and getting all these leaders, heads of state, heads of government, accommodating them and their delegations. We heard that President Biden perhaps is coming with 3 plane loads of his team. How was that experience?
So, as I said, planning started well before we took on the presidency. And that is why today we can sit back and say with a measure of confidence that we will have a summit that will be absolutely extraordinary. But the process in leading up to the summit has also been quite interesting from the point of view that we have broken new ground. We have gone, as I said, from Kutch to Kohima, and we've gone to all parts of our country. So from that perspective, I think working with local authorities to create infrastructure, to encourage urban transformations, beautifications, also capacity, enhancing capacity for the requirements of the G20. And all of this is, as I said, for a good cause beyond the G20, because many of these cities today have the confidence and the capacity to host major conferences and MICE events. It has boosted tourism. It has showcased our developmental and cultural heritage capacities. And I think it has done a world of good to us as a country. And so I would say that if there were any challenges in the process, they were worth surmounting.
Like any anecdote on this Bharat Mandapam, how you went about it, thinking that we need a convention center which is needed immediately for G20 and then should be available for India's diplomatic engagements later as well.
So here there was a lot of foresight, because the construction of Bharat Mandapam started years ago and predates my time both in the MEA and in this current position. I think it started with the realization that we will host the G20 presidency. We need a new convention center because we don't have those capacities that are required for such an important international event, but also for the future. As the Prime Minister said when he inaugurated the Bharat Mandapam, that in our capital city we now have the capacity to hold major conferences, and this will hold us in very good stead in the future. So Bharat Mandapam, I think, is a matter of pride for all Indians, that it is a state-of-art convention center. It is also linked to a number of ancillary facilities, and all of them have been upgraded substantially for the G20.
Right. My last question to the diplomat in you. With this talk that President Jinping might not be coming, does it impact outcome of the main summit in any manner, or we are fine?
First of all, I think the question is speculative because we don't know. And I don't know for certain who's coming and who's not coming. And whether at all that issue is established, I'm not sure. But what is important is that we would have the heads of state and government and important leaders of all of our G20 partner countries, invitee countries and international organizations. It would be an unprecedented gathering of the most influential and important world leaders in our country. It's a very unique opportunity for us.
Right.
And certainly we will put it to the best use, and the summit will be an extraordinary summit in keeping with our expectations of an impeccable and uniquely Indian G20.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Shringla, for joining us on this special broadcast.
The top-ranked Amity B.Tech attracts some of the most brilliant students of India who get global exposure at the 5-week study abroad program at Amity's global campuses at no additional tuition fee. To apply, visit amity.edu.
Sir, एक बात बताइए, what is the motivation for a person who is differently abled or disabled? उसका क्या motivation हो सकता है? I'm trying to understand.
Last 7 years I am on a wheelchair. Disability का सबसे पहला disadvantage ये होता है कि you lose your job, number one. अगर if you have had an accident, a serious accident, है ना? You lose your job, then you have to come out of that physical and mental trauma. Then you have to retool yourself, re-educate yourself for another job. And when you go to that another job, you are paid less than an able-bodied person. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
People of this country know that whichever language we go to, we are speaking for the people 24/7. We are truly the voice of the people. Today we dedicate Republic Kannada to the people of Karnataka. I am totally confident that the people of Karnataka will welcome us and accept us, give us their blessings in this journey.
Nobody can ever trouble an honest journalist. Nobody can ever trouble an honest media house. We are destined for success. Every moment from now on, I want everyone in the Digvijaya newsroom to always remember that you must be wedded to the cause of news. Thank you very much, Anand, for having us here and for letting us take the journey forward.
Welcome back. Now, as Delhi readies itself to impress foreign dignitaries arriving here for the G20 summit, among the many 5-star